Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Level Up and Live podcast. Our mission is to empower business owners to design a life they don't grow to hate without sacrificing health, relationships, and spirituality through accountability, support, clarity, guidance, and community. Today's guest is the calm in the chaos, a visionary, healer, and entrepreneur who's redefining what rest really means. Melody Fraser is the founder of Blissful Waters Float Center, where high performers come to reset, realign, and reconnect with who they truly are. If you've been burning the candle at both ends, this episode is for you. Welcome to the show, Melody.
Hi there. My name is Melody Fraser. I'm the owner of Blissful Waters Float Center. We are located in the Woodlands, Texas. We're a 3 float room center, and then we have a lot of other wellness items as well that align with float therapy. But floating is definitely the heart of what we do, and we love supporting the Woodlands.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for that great intro. You nailed it. So take us, for the listeners and audience and viewers, what is floating, and what can you peel back the layers a little bit about and what that is for people that haven't done it? I mean, I'm curious as well because I've never done it.
So floating is a sensory enhancement. So by removing like the sense of sound and light, you're enhancing all your other senses. It's a weightless, zero gravity environment. But so if you struggle with meditation or any type of focus challenge, float therapy kind of pushes you into it without training, without the need for study beforehand. You just can arrive, show up. We take you to your cabin. It's filled with about 1,200 pounds of Epsom salt. You just float effortlessly right on top of that. Not everyone can go straight into turning off the lights and turning off the sounds. That sounds scary to people, but it'll eventually become your place of peace because really you can't find that anywhere. So we do have calming music, sometimes uncalming music like Pink Floyd, and lights in there for your experience. But yeah, it's just a place of to be able to go internal and really to focus inward and find your inner peace and sort through things. Some people hyper focus in there and some people just turn everything off. But it's a beautiful space.
It sounds so peaceful and relaxing. I love that. So Melody, take us back. What inspired you to create Blissful Waters? And did you ever imagine it would become such a powerful refuge for so many business owners, high performers, and achievers?
Absolutely not. So I was in the unknown. I was at the moment a stay-at-home mom, didn't plan on being a stay-at-home mom. It just kind of worked out that way. And I was that's how I found floating, I should say, not how I became the owner of Blissful Waters, but I found floating because of that. And then I just fell in love with it. It was love at first float. My husband sent me to a float tank, and he's from Australia. So he actually grew up with them there. And I had never experienced complete solitude before. And I just fell in love. And I was driving to Austin in the beginning once a month, and I'd spend the whole week in there and do like nature with my floating and just really connect with myself. And I didn't want to lose who I was as a person in my marriage and as the kids' mother. And I wanted to stay true to myself. And so then I started critiquing them, and I was going to the ones in Houston, and I was driving all the way back to this side of town. By the time I got home, I needed another float. It really was losing. I wanted that sense of nature involved with the floats. Yeah. And so I was coming home and I was talking to my husband. I'm like, I wish there was a juice afterwards. I wish I had this afterwards. This would just enhance my experience even more. And he was like, I think you should just open one. And so we put it all together, and it seemed really easy at the time. We're just like, yeah, let's just go take our savings and go open a float center. This will be great. Little known, there's lots of challenges when you open any business.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's how we got started. It was just a simple little, me judging and critiquing other float centers, which were very male dominated. They're very dark. They're very cavey. And I feel like I brought light into the float industry.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, that right there, what I'm hearing you say is that's that entrepreneurial mindset. It's like you plugged yourself in and you looked for what was working, what was not working for you, and then created that here locally in Montgomery County. And your facility is in the Woodlands, correct?
Correct. We are on Timberlock Place right off the Grogan's Mill. So right in the heart of the Woodlands.
right in the heart of the Woodlands, and you've got been open for a little over 6 years now. And then, so that's 2025. So you were opened, correct me if I'm wrong, doing the math here, right as COVID hit, right? In 2019, 2020. How was that experience, and how did you overcome those challenges and obstacles?
So COVID was interesting, but before COVID, I actually was so much more challenged with construction, and I had two contractors steal all of our money. So
Oh,
we, yeah, so it was like a
man.
2 year process. That's where I built my grit. That's where I built like no one's gonna stop me kind of attitude. So when COVID happened, I remember the door that morning, like when they made the announcement, it was like a revolving door, phone calls, people coming in, canceling their memberships. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to
God.
do?
Yeah.
And then I started canceling appointments. Like I was going to shut down. And I had 3 combat vets floating with me at the time. And when I came across one in particular, I was like, I can't stop him from floating. I can't. And so I figured out how to become essential. And I called the virologist of the float industry. We got with him. We knew he told us what we had to completely omit from our spa life and it just had to be floats. So we were able to stay open throughout all of COVID. It was just really downsized. Like you just came in and floated and went. There was no tea happening. There
Oh,
was
wow.
no social time. There were no, massage chairs. All of that was just put to rest for a while.
Yeah.
But we could at least float the people, and we didn't really gain a lot of new clients during that time. We did get a couple Amazon workers. They were extremely stressed, interestingly enough, but we kept all our combat vets. And so that meant a lot, but they're who kept us open and made us essential. And so we stayed open during that time. We were minimal employees. We only had 2 float tanks. We ended up growing during COVID. We decided to take that opportunity and build our 3rd float room out so I never looked at it like fear. I looked at it more, I study Tony Robbins. I do all this stuff, and they always
Mhm.
say, capitalize when things are rough. Look at it as the
Yes.
bigger picture. And I had floats in that. So I was able to go to the float tank and look at things in a bigger picture. And I knew it wasn't going to stay like that forever. People were in such fear. And I was able to tame that down and look at it. And also my past of how hard it was getting open. All of that kind of gave me it was almost like I slowed down when everything else was crazy around me. And then I just took it one day at a time.
Wow. We're only 5-10 minutes into this episode. I'm like, Melody, you are my new best friend. You're awesome.
Aww. Thank you.
You obviously are living and embodying what a true entrepreneur mindset really takes. And you've went through being in business for 6 years, having that grit, that relentlessness, and overcoming these challenges and obstacles, and then studying the people like Tony Robbins you had mentioned, because that's what it takes. It's molding and going down the road that people have already traveled, and you're embodying that. So I just love that. You can hear the authentic and the genuineness in your voice. And so it's just beautiful, and it's very rare. So for our listeners and audience that are receiving that, I always challenge them and empower them, because man, life gets tough. It's hard. It's a struggle. But that is the ultimate test. It's in that moment in how we react and who we need to become. There might be blind spots. There might be, we're fatigued, exhausted, but it's in those moments, like you said, that you keep putting one foot in front of the other and making sure that you have a supporting husband and people around you, and adapting, right? You adapted in that moment. Okay, people can't come in because of COVID. All right, well, we're going to do what we can. Maybe we can't have tea. And so you've evolved as a human being and a business owner. And here we are today, 6+ years later. You're thriving. You're making things happen. You got a team of 8 people, and just exciting times ahead. So I'm super excited for you. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
So float therapy, I'm going to stay on this for a little bit. It's still new to a lot of people. Can you break it down? If a 5th grader was listening to this, because I'll be completely transparent with you, I don't know. I mean, you explained a little bit about it, what float therapy is. I'm used to cold plunges, saunas, infrareds, meditation, breath work, massages. Like I am your ideal client. So you're talking to me, I'm on the podcast, I'm listening to this right now, and these leaders and entrepreneurs are doing the same thing. I have a lot of business owner friends that do the same thing I do, but I know they don't do float therapy. What is it, and why does it matter for leaders and entrepreneurs to do it?
For me, float therapy, I'm my own therapist. I do not like telling someone all my problems, or even I don't feel like I have problems. You go to a therapist and you really don't feel like you have the problems. But when you sit in a float tank and ideally remove those extra senses of light and sound, but either way, you are able to go inwards, and those things that are in your subconscious, or those fears and those anxieties, they come to the surface, and you have to deal with them. You have to deal with them at the surface level and start sorting through things and realizing, well, that's not so scary, or I can handle it this way. And then when you process those things in the tank, it helps you outside. But the process of the float is really simple. It's nothingness. You literally are doing nothing. And you've got this beautiful bed of Epsom salt waters that you just go into and just are buoyant, zero gravity, weightless. You float naked, so your whole blood circulation, you're weightless. It declutters the subconscious. I mean, it's a beautiful, calming experience. So if you're just going for relaxation, you don't have to have be an entrepreneur necessarily to do it. You don't have to have big things going on. You could just want to relax for the day, but that relaxation carries you into the next 2 days. It's like proven to carry for the next 2 days. So some people say with anxieties, things like that, they take a pill and they're cured for about 3 or 4 hours.
Yep.
Floating, you're cured for like 2 days, if not 3 or more, and then it has this accumulative effect. But yeah, it's a very simple process. You open the door, you get in, you float on top of the water, your timer goes off, the lady says, welcome back, time to get on out. And then you're just feeling, you're lighter. When you calm the mind, the body follows. And that's what floating does for you.
Yes, I love that. Do you recommend, how long is the session, and how often do you recommend doing floating?
So the sessions range, we just started a 45-minute one because the world is kind of hurting people's focus and ability to sit with themselves.
Yes.
A traditional floats, I would say 60 minutes is the money spot, because after you get to this 30-minute mark where you're kind of like restless and you almost want to get out. You're like, this isn't working. This is stupid. What am I doing? I could be knocking this out for my job. I could be working on that. But then you find this beautiful space right after of nothing. And that's when the magic happens. That's when you just drift off into nothing. And that's where you can't even explain what happens after that, because it's all about brainwave states. It's moving you from your high thinking to your creative thinking to your sleeping. I'm not going to go into all the brainwaves because that's like a lot, but that's basically the gist of all of it. You're moving from overthinking to calmness to creativity to focus. I hope I answered the question.
You with this, Melody?
I am. There we go.
Okay, you're back. Okay.
That's weird.
Yeah, no worries. And I'll have my podcast editor cut that. All right, rolling into, so you help people rest and reconnect. So, but as a business owner, entrepreneur yourself, how do you protect your own peace and energy while serving other people, customers, and your community?
Oh, good. Well, for myself, I require at least 30 minutes of self-care a day. And self-care for me is more mental. It's quiet time. The floating spoiled me. I really, really enjoy the no talking, my kids, I've got 2 teenagers, so they talk a lot and they love to talk at midnight, they just swore teenagers have a different brain. They have to get everything out so that they can hear themselves think and know how silly it sounds. So you as the parent have to sit there and listen to all this sometimes nonsense, you know? And so and then I have 8 employees and they have lives, and they're, as a good business owner, you need to know what their lives are and you need to interact with them and you need to talk to them. So I talk to them. So some days I feel like I've got gooses at my face all day long. So I require 30 minutes a day minimum of either, I consider exercise self-care, because you're focused, like Pilates, things like that. Anything that's mindful. I do, even if it's hitting a red light bed for 30 minutes. I don't like the short ones because I think you need the longer period with yourself, But 30 minutes a day. I wish I could float every day, but it is a little bit hard. But I float once a week, mandatory, That's what like keeps my state even and flowing and listening to everyone else and being there for others.
So that what I'm hearing you say is that 30 minutes a day allows you to rest, refuel, and really reset your mindset so you can show up that optimal version for your employees, your team, your spouse, and everyone else around you. Is that correct?
Yeah. You got to increase your own energy buckets.
Yes.
And when your energy is down, you can't feed others at all.
Yeah. And so that transitions perfectly into the next question. So many business owners, and myself included, like I shared before we started the podcast episode, is I was always on the go, 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 the constant state of stress, anxiety. I got to reach that outcome. I got to reach that goal. Sure, it'll get me to where I want to go, but that was the ego and pride in the driver's seat. So I had to slow down to go fast. And I'm curious, from your experience, what are the dangers of that pace from somebody that's listening to this, that's always on the go, calendar booked up, they're always saying yes to everything, but they're not really aware of what's really driving their decisions and their actions? And in how does that intentional rest that you're talking about, that 30 minutes, become a performance strategy to really catapult them to become that next level optimal version of themselves?
Sorry, I'm kind of trying to understand the question a little bit. So to become, there's a lot of questions in that question.
Yeah,
What
no
was
worries.
the first part? What was the first part?
So business owners are always on the go.
Yeah.
We have so many things: marketing, sales, employees, team, leading, family, friends. What is the dangers of that pace? And how does that intentional rest that you talked about become a performance strategy to catapult?
So the dangers is disease. It's autoimmune. Stress is the precursor of all disease. So if you're living in fight or flight 24/7 and you're not taking any break for yourself, not only are you teaching your nervous system to live that way and not understand what normal and relaxation are. Have you ever been with someone who can't sit? They're like cleaning. You go to their house for a party and they're cleaning. Yeah, they're constantly doing stuff. That was me, at one point. And then I remember when I learned to sit on a couch and I was like, wow, I don't think I've ever done this. I don't think I've ever just sat and had a conversation.
Yes.
I am always standing, always moving, making something. I used to be a really good bartender, like a really good bartender. And so even that, like you're making things, you're chatting with people, that is not good. Like you have to learn to just sit, give those people your full focus, but also like your own self. So rest for it to become powerful for you in your jobs, to take that rest, you're going to get so much more done by having, say, one day where you give yourself a day to go to the lake or a day to float, something for you, because the next day your alpha brainwaves are kicking and you've got creativity, you've got new ideas for your job, your energy systems are bigger. So the people that are working for you, your teammates, your family mates, you're like on fire telling them what to do and they're feeding off your energy.
Yes.
So living in fight or flight, living in go, 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 it doesn't do you any purpose. So go ahead and enjoy those days off, like schedule them.
I agree with you 1000%. And my sub question to that is, with business owners listening to that, and you're like, okay, Melody, I hear you, and I need to go slow to go fast. I need to take those rest days because of it's going to allow me to become that 10.0 version of myself to rest and refuel. But where do I find time? I don't have time. I have to meet customers' demands, my kids' demands. I'm a busy woman. I'm a busy mom. And I have to meet my employees' demands. Where do I find time to rest and refuel? If you're talking to that version, Melody, if you're talking to that lady or that man that's a business owner that says that, because we've all heard it and we all have said it, I don't have enough time to rest for myself because I'm pouring pouring it into everybody else. What would you tell that person?
Well, unfortunately, I see that all the time. That's one of the hardest things to do, is to convince someone to take time for themselves. And even people who get donations from us at Blissful Waters, like someone, I can always tell, I go, y'all, you do a lot for others. And I try to give them a gift card for themselves. And 90% of the time, they want to gift it to someone else because they're just not in that mindset. So that's hard, because eventually they get forced to slow down. And that's, like I said, where the autoimmune comes in, the high blood pressure, your body will make you slow down at some point. You'll
Yes.
get sick. So the only way to really talk to an entrepreneur and really try to get them to not go that direction is to listen to their body, to their aches, to their pains, to their blood pressure. Those are your body's signs of telling you need to slow down. But it's best to not even get to that point. But most of us are stubborn and we don't listen, and we get ourselves to that point. And that's when you come to me and you're like, I need to lower my blood pressure because I didn't listen to you. you
Yeah.
know? Um, but yeah,
What
unfortunately, that's a very hard one.
Yes, it really is. And I talk about this all the time. It's almost like we have to go through that pain cave. It's like we almost have to experience it ourselves to go, okay, Melody, okay, Sean, you guys are right. And then, in which we both understand that because we have been through that. At least I know I have in that journey of leveling up and living my best life. Just shy over 3 years ago, I hit a wall. And it's like I was telling before we started recording the podcast. I was wondering why, sure, I had the accolades, the cars, the houses, and the money in the bank account. And it seemed like to society, I was killing it. I was crushing it. I was the man. But deep down inside, I was not the man. I was miserable. I was
Yep.
happy. I was 30 pounds overweight. I had no friends. At least they didn't like me. And my ego and pride was driving me. And so because I didn't understand that go slow to go fast, I was always in the constant go, 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 stressed out all the time to hit the goal, to that dangling carrot. And I know where that leads. It led to burnout, led to frustration, and it led to overwhelm. And everything that you're saying, I hope that lands with our audience and listeners and viewers is to slow down. Whatever season of life that you're in right now, it's just to slow down, making sure that you're intentional. That's the key word, intentional about resting and refueling and asking, are the decisions and the activities that you're taking on a daily basis aligned with the things that you want to do and who you want to say yes to in your business as far as values, beliefs, and your mission and vision. Once you do, you become authentically alive. And Melody, I'm hearing you authentically aligned with who it is and what you believe in on a daily basis. And that right there is somebody worth following as far as leadership. Yes or yes?
Yes. Well, and I have my own story to that too. About a
Go
year
ahead.
ago,
Yeah.
I let myself get in cortisol. I had like a chemical cortisol reaction due to stress, not eating properly.
Wow.
It was December time. It was actually 2 years ago in December. It's a
Yeah.
very busy month for moms. Plus, I had a business, so I'm trying to lead everything at home through the schools, through my business.
Yep.
And I had a breakdown at Chipotle. I was hangry, and the lady made me mad. And I remember I felt that heat come all the way up from my toes to my. And I kept saying, "Melly, you're just hungry. Be patient. Don't rip her head off. Everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
You got this." But she didn't. She yelled at me and it triggered it. And after that, I had this crazy cortisol effect where I was so sensitive. My husband couldn't smack anything onto the, like if he cooked and he smacked the spatula on the side of the dish, it would charge my soul and my whole system would react. So I had to use float therapy. I had to use the calm things. I had to eat better. That's something else as entrepreneurs. We tend to try to skip meals or eat a little bit here and there. Yep. Fueling your body is so important. But I had to learn that the hard way as well. And I thought, gosh, this is what I tell people. This is like basics, and here I am getting hit with the basics right now. But I fixed it. And now I'm teaching others the same, not to get into that situation.
That's awesome. And I love that you're impacting like that. And I know hundreds and thousands of people listening to this. Your story is going to not only impact and serve them, but it's also going to be an inspiration because you are embodying and you're living it. See, it's one thing to preach this, teach this, but if you're not actually, from my experience, if you're not actually living it and been through it, we are best equipped to help the people we once were. And that to me is aligning a life and designing a life that you want to live is by building that bridge and that connection to help the people that were where we were or going through that and creating that community, that business, whatever it may be, to say, hey, we got you. We got the support, the guidance, whatever it may be, because it's not if, but when you fall on your rear end, you've got to be able to pick yourself back up and have somebody there that's going to be able to guide you through that along the way. And it's just such a beautiful place to be. And I can feel your energy and I just excited. Obviously, it's really, passionate about that. Now, we touched a little bit on leadership and management. You have a team of 8 employees, and I want to touch a little bit about management versus leadership. And we also talk about aligning that with helping people, these people that come into your facility, feel safe in their bodies. Why do you think it's such a struggle in today's culture, and how does that disconnect impact our leadership in what you do on a daily basis?
Well, there's just a lot of unrealistic standards. There's a sense of perfectionism all around us, from beautiful homes to well-kept yards to everyone dressed perfectly. A lot of these standards we can't get there, and so at some point you just have to know who you are and be happy with who you are, and show your real authentic self. I personally believe your real authentic self comes through sobriety as well. I found, for me, removing alcohol helped me become like my true authentic self and who I know in float therapy and all the other tools I was using. But yeah, most of us walk around pretending, and there just comes a point in life where, you got to release those unrealistic standards and become true to yourself. And then that will outshine everything.
Man, I love that answer. And it's really, I resonate so much with that because I masked everything for the longest time. I'll share this quick story back in 2021 when I hit that wall, that pain cave of doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. I was the cog in the wheel. I was on the rat race. And I'm 38 now. This was right around 34, 35. And I realized I'm like, there's more to life than what meets the eye. And I remember hiring my first coach. Fast forward it was a 3-month program. I was about 8 weeks in. He sent me, we had a phone call scheduled. And on the phone call, Melody, I said, look, I feel like I'm wasting my time here. And I don't know why we keep having these phone calls. We're not making any progress. My impatience kicked in, right? In which I struggle with, and it's a weakness of mine. It's also a double-edged sword, right? It can be a great resource as well, a skill set. And he said, you know what? Let me reflect on what you just told me, and then let's circle back around for the phone call. I said, okay, no problem. I was already upset, frustrated at that point. He sends me an email, Melody, that evening. And in that email, I read, hey, Sean, I'm talking to you on the phone. Am I talking to Superman or am I talking to Clark Kent? It was in that moment when I realized that my entire 34 years of my life, I had been masking. I had been the Superman. I felt like I had to be the hero for everybody, my employees, my team, my wife, everybody. And that put so much pressure on me. And I didn't have God in my life really to a certain degree at that point. And when he said that, he had my attention. I was showing up as Superman, not Clark Kent. Superman drops the mask, puts the cape down, and allows Clark Kent shows up the authentic, the vulnerable guy, the guy that's going to share the struggles, the trials and tribulations. And once he told me that, it really transformed and was the catalyst to the journey of that spiritual healing for the last 3 years of becoming the best version of myself and looking inward versus looking outward. And that was the biggest game changers. Do you have any thoughts on that, or do you resonate with that in your own journey?
Yeah, I resonated on like at my business at Blissful Waters. So when you come into Blissful, you put on a robe, right? Everybody. Yeah. And you go in, so everyone's robed up, they go to the massage and they go to the float, and then they come out into our post-float lounge. So the lounge is a beautiful space because you will have an entrepreneur sometimes right next to a drug dealer. I mean, you just never know my point is, like, you don't know what's in the room. You can have a blue collar worker with someone who's financially safe for their whole life. And those conversations are so good. I love it when the grandma I have a young Down syndrome guy who floats. A grandma comes in and she just talks to him the whole time and builds him up. It's almost like, and so everyone loses their mask in there because you don't have your uniform on. You don't have your Superman suit on. You're in a white robe or a gray robe, and you're just talking to the people with you. So it's real conversations. It's figuring out who you are. And, those true personalities come in because there's no fakeness, and everyone's just there to love and help each other. And your feels are so on the surface as well. But yeah, that's what your story kind of reminded me of, is how that's one of my favorite things, is that the mask gets dropped.
Yes. And it's such a beautiful place to be because we do get to be our authentic self because, like you said, with social media, influencers, And everywhere, everybody puts their good stuff on social media, right? The ripped abs, and the big house, the big cars, and it's like we're looking at this stuff as human beings and going, we're comparing ourselves because that's just what we do. And we judge and we criticize, and it can be really daunting. And so what I'm hearing you say is, by you creating this beautiful place, Blissful Waters, this environment where people can come in, drop the mask, and that creates vitality, that creates bliss, that creates joy and happiness. Because that's, in my belief, as human beings, that's what allows you to design the life that you don't grow to hate and that you want to live through that. And man, the more and more me and you're talking, I'm like, holy smokes, man, we're very aligned with, some of these different things and what you're doing, your mission and your vision at Blissful Waters, and what you're doing and making an impact. I'm curious, with people that come in and experience that melody on dropping their mask, do you ever have any clients? Do you have a success story, a testimony where somebody like myself 3 years ago came in and was masking everything, and then they kept coming back over and over, and then they basically came to realization like, holy smokes, I've been masking everything. This is what showed up by plugging myself into Blissful Waters, and my mindset shift. I've been the catalyst and have really leveled up. Do you have anything that's happened in the last 6 years for a client that's been a success story come to mind?
Yeah, we have a lot of, every day is a success story in there. People walk in with their shoulders up to their ears and they're grumpy faced. And I will say the middle-aged women are probably my most success, like around 60. For some reason, I don't know if it's hormones or just the I don't give a care attitude comes in, but I love watching those ladies find their peace again, because they're definitely, many of them can be a challenge in the beginning when they first come in, because they're just not happy. And then, as they float and they come out and they're talking to people next to them, that the mask is gone and it's just themselves talking on a real level basis, we watch them grow, definitely. And then, I've got, pretty much everyone. We call it, one of my team members, she's been with me 6 years. She wants to take pre and post pictures of people like they do at the med spa, because the face just completely relaxes. It's almost like you squirted Botox in the float tanks.
I love that.
Not really related though to like the mask. I would say the biggest thing that sticks in my head as a change was a girl that owns Living Holistic out in Woodlands. She brought her mother in directly after a stroke. And this is more on she's a doer for others, always pleasing other people. She ended up with a stroke. They carried her mom in. She could not walk, put her in the float tank, no sensory input, no light, no sound. And she walked out on her own. So that's probably the biggest one that sticks in my head. Okay. I also have a male who had dementia, and he just had a bogged down brain. And so he had to quit his job, and he started floating to try to get his brain back. And he ended up going back to work after, a good few months of floating. So those are kind of the transitions I think of. The others, like just becoming your better self, that's like every day. Like I said, people come in like this and they leave like, feel good,
Yeah, there's so many intangibles, right? It's like, if you put a pulse to it, from my experience, it's not going to happen overnight. If something like this, you've got to, and I'm sure you preach this all the time, and the people that come in, as far as your members, and we talk about this all the time. And I know I'm kind of this, bear with me here, but it's kind of a side note, and I always love bringing this up because it makes so much sense. With jiu-jitsu and karate, there's the white belt, brown belt, and there's yellow belt, black belt. What do you think the hardest belt is to get and obtain when it comes to jiu-jitsu or karate?
Well, black, right?
So that's what brown? I thought. I thought it was black. I was like, yeah, sure, black belt, right? Because it's, takes so long. But I have a friend that's in jiu-jitsu, and he's a professor, and he said the hardest belt is a white belt. I said, well, why is that? He said, because people don't consistently show up. They don't consistently keep showing up. They'll show up one time, but then they don't show up the second time. They'll show up the first and second and third time, but they don't show up the fourth week. And so what I'm hearing you say in Blissful Waters is like, you can come one and experience that, but you have to consistently show up. And this allows you to be intentional about your rest, refueling, and stillness. Calm, cool, collective. and really allow you to gather your thoughts. Go ahead. You had thoughts on that.
Yeah, earlier you said, how often to float. I'm going back to that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of what you're talking about right now.
Yep.
We always recommend, once a month, just to kind of reboot your system, just get you going. But once a week is ideal. And I'm always trying to get people to think of floating as a practice, not just a experience. I mean, it's fun as an experience, and it's a fun, like, oh, hey, it's the end of the school year. Your wife's a teacher. It's the end of the school year. I'm going to go get my float in. But it's best if you do them once a month or once a week for all the full benefits, and truly watch yourself change. I mean, your hearing will get better, your focus gets better, your sense of smell. There's just so many things that happen when you do it as a practice.
I believe it. So with your space, it obviously invites people to slow down. That's what we've been talking about. Slow down to go fast. How can business owners, high performers, achievers, how can they incorporate if somebody's like, Melody, okay, I can't make it once a month. I can't make it once a week. And I already know the answer to that. But what is something they can practically incorporate, like many little moments that you would recommend if they can't make it down to your facility? What would be that one tip or piece of advice that you would recommend for them to rest a little bit more or reconnect throughout their workday? Any tips on that?
So, I tell people to go back to acting like they're smoking a cigarette. Think about it. When we were young, I know my mom didn't smoke, but the society smoked cigarettes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what did they do when they smoked? They went outside, they took that deep breath into their diaphragm, they went internal for a minute. And so I say, pretend you're smoking a cigarette. Like, just go outside and have a puff of air, and it's amazing what that does for you. And it really does reconnect you back to your brain, to your body, to your breath. It diminishes the stress of it. But that's always it's free right now. So far, air is free.
Yes.
And you just have to take a few minutes out of your break. And imagine if it's a smoke break, just don't go out where the smokers are.
That's right. Yeah. Some second degree. That's actually brilliant. I've never heard anybody put it like that. I really love that. So go out there, take a breath work break, and I'll have to try that. It's like, just take a couple deep breaths, whether it's 2 or 3 minutes. I think it makes all the difference in the world. And it's funny that you say that. Go ahead.
They were so less stressed back. I mean, we didn't hear about anxiety and all this kind of stuff when people were smoking cigarettes. So I was like, what's the correlation?
Yes, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's for the listeners and audience. It's like, okay, well, I have to go out and get a cigarette. No, you don't have to go out and get a cigarette, but it's the mindset behind it. It's like, hey, go out, give yourself 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you can allow, and then allow that to progress over time. It's like, oh, okay. Give yourself 30, 60, 90 days and see how it makes a difference. It lowers your HRV. It lowers your resting heart rate. And that makes all the difference in the world. And it just made me realize yesterday, I do an alignment check every day in the afternoon time on all areas of life. And then my top 3 wins, my top 3 things that I need to adjust. Well, I always do a pretty good job on the top 3 wins, but then the top 3 things that I need to adjust, which is where do I need to correct course in, whether it's my nutrition or relationships, or I didn't like the way I spoke to that person. And yesterday, actually the last 48 hours, I have just been a million miles an hour. And I resonate so much with that. Just go, 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 go. Because when you are living a purpose-driven life, and I'm sure you know this, Melody, it's, you're obsessed with what you do. Time flies, right? Just like this podcast, just like this episode. And I found myself the last 2 days, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have not done a 3 to 5 minute breath work break. Because I always do like a breath work or meditation, sometimes push up.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things I put down on my alignment check, is like, I need to adjust. And that's today. So like after this podcast, normally I'd be going to the next thing, but I'll do 5 to 10 minutes of breath work. And that'll allow me to catapult and be a catalyst for my energy, the next 8 to 10 hours. Do you resonate with that?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's building your energy field. That's building your energies, everything in your body. You're just kind of reconnecting with yourself. I do that as well. I call it the state. Like, you have to, so either get up, move. Like if I'm behind a computer, I kind of start dozing off.
Yes.
I just can't.
Yep.
So I got to get up every once in a while, move around, do some breath work, do a little jumping jacks. I don't know, like just get the blood flow going and then get back in it. And your mind's charged again.
That's right. That's right. Speaking of that, boundaries are a big part of your message. What advice do you have for leaders, business owners listening to this who constantly pour into others, but they don't know how to draw the line for themselves? Any advice or pointers or tips on that?
For boundaries, what worked for me was communication. I
Okay.
found if I just communicated with the person that was sucking my boundaries, or just first you got to find out what are your boundaries, and
Yeah.
sometimes a little bit of your values will kind of flow into your boundaries. So you got to make sure you're pay attention to what you value most, and then your boundaries. Yeah, if you don't want to talk, if you're not good on the phone after 10 p.m., then turn your phone off. And you don't
Yes.
talk after 10 p.m. You go and answer that in the morning with no problems. People don't really expect you to constantly answer them. Like I had to teach boundaries to my website developer because I tend to send her everything on Saturdays.
Yep.
And then she got all upset with me and was like, I don't work on Saturdays and I don't want to do this on Saturday. And I said, I didn't expect you to do it on Saturday. That's when I am doing my creative work. And so
Yes.
I'm sending it to you, but that doesn't mean you had to answer it.
That's
You could
right.
have answered it Monday morning. I never once said. And so I taught her that, and she's like, wow, you taught me something today. I said, if your Saturday is your value and that's where you're, spending your you time, then ignore my email. It's
Yeah.
that simple. And I had to teach my brother that too, because he's like, you call me at these weird times and I can't answer. And I said, well, then don't answer.
Yes.
It's that simple.
Yes.
So you just have to, on your end, you push out what you expect, and then others will follow that. You're teaching them. So boundaries are also about teaching, I would say, as well. You're teaching people how to treat you.
That is absolutely brilliant advice. I would highly recommend our viewers, listeners, and audience to rewind that for the last 30 seconds and go listen to that advice again. I couldn't agree with you more. You hit the nail right on the head. And it took me years, a decade, to actually learn that. I remember employees texting me at 4 a.m. in the morning, Melody. I remember customers emailing me, and I was always at the beck of them. I was always on other people's agenda. And when I realized, I'm like, oh, I'm the problem. It's me. It's not them, because I'm responding. I'm on their agenda. And I had nothing left to give. And I was wondering why I was so frustrated and, anxiety and stressed out and miserable. It's because I was on everybody else's agenda. I never looked inward. And when I learned what you just shared, which is brilliant advice, communicate. That's it. Let's just communicate to the customers, our employees, our spouse. Hey, I'm not, the 10.0 version of myself right now. I'm at a 3. Here's when I normally answer emails, or here's when I normally do phone calls, and just educating, communicating those that are around us, and the why behind that. Not just telling them, but here's why I'm wanting to do this. And if you want me to show up the best version of myself for you, then this is why I'm doing this. And I think with those two things, and if they 9 times out of 10, they're going to respect that. But if they don't, then, then that's on them.
Yeah.
I love that. All right, wrapping up. We are at a time, Melanie. I feel like we could talk for the next, hour, 2 hours. Iron sharpens iron. Here's one final question before we dive into how we can support you. What does Level Up and Live mean to you personally, and how are you helping people embody that through Blissful Waters and beyond?
Let's see. Level Up to me is reclaiming your power. I would say, like, reclaim your power and be your authentic self, and then that's just going to flow into your everyday life and help you level up. But if you're on the go and you're fighting flight or fight, but you can't do that. So you got to reclaim who you are and who your power is, and then have an internal glow.
Beautifully said. Mic drop. I love it. Great answer. And it's everybody's unique answer to themselves. So I love that. Level Up and Live. Well, so final question. How can our community at Level Up and Live, how can we support you, Melanie Fraser? We appreciate you saying yes today. I just want to acknowledge you for being here today, sharing your story, and being your authentic self. I know this is your first podcast episode, but who could have fooled? Like, man, you've done this several times. And the reason you're able to come off as competent and confident is because you're actually embodying it and you're living it and everything that you said. So I really appreciate you. This is going to impact, I have no doubt, hundreds and thousands of lives. So I appreciate you. And outside of that, how can our community at Level Up and Live support you?
Well, you can check out our website and see if any of the services might do you well, blissfulwatersfloat.com. Also, just if you hear of anybody struggling with anxiety, depression, or balance in their life, you can send them our way. We love to answer phone calls, so we're big. We're customer service is our big thing with us. So we have no problems if you just want to call and ask questions. We'll answer them. You can stop by for tours as well. But we would just love to be. We call ourselves the water hole of the Woodlands, the community water hole, and we would love for you just to come by for some community time, even just stop in and say hi.
Great. And we'll have this in the show notes as well for easy access for anybody that's interested. And just full transparency, I'm definitely going to try this and put this in my regimen. So I will be hitting up your office and scheduling some time here in the near future to come in and check out the facilities and try out float therapy. So I'm excited.
How about I do a 20% off? I'll do a little discount code for Level Up.
Come on.
So anybody that watches this podcast and would like to come try it, y'all just type in Level Up at your discount code and you'll get 20% off of any of the services.
Well, fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you. That means a lot. And I know I'll let our mastermind group community know, because I'm sitting here thinking in the back of my mind, like, man, he'll do it. He'll do it. He'll do it. He'll do it. We may even have to do like a group outing to come and do. I don't know how many people you can take on, but that would be a super cool environment, and then also aligned with what we're all about. So I appreciate that, Melody.
Yeah, let's chat about it. But yeah, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Melody, Fraser just reminded us of something every leader needs to hear. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Whether you're building a business, leading a team, or raising a family, true power comes into presence, not pressure. If you're ready to stop running on fumes and start operating from overflow, go visit Blissful Waters Float Center and allow yourself to reset. You don't need to earn rest. You deserve it. If this episode gave you a breath of fresh air, share it, rate it, talk about it. Tag someone who needs to hear this message, and then do yourself a favor. Schedule some time to tune out the noise, and tune into you. Now go out, level up, and live your best life. Thanks again, Melody.
Bye.